I kind of think of Shelley as like the Justice League. Everyone talks about, Brinley Cannon, but they're kind of like the Justice League. They just have a nice set of characters that back them up.
When it comes to high school sports, East Idaho never gets its due.
I ran into Jeremy Hess, the AD of Grace Lutheran, and, he was just excited. And then, I'm just talking to him and he goes, we have 7 girls. So just amazing.
But the East Idaho Prepcast has changed that, covering the biggest sports stories from Salmon all the way down to Bear Lake.
And again, Grace is always that team just kind of lurking, like, yeah, there's Grace. They, they don't have social media, but you know what? They have footballs, they got grass, they got pads, and they use all those very well.
It's the East Idaho Prepcast with Sean Kane on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Hello and welcome to another edition of the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, where we break down the top sports stories from Districts 5 and 6 of Idaho high school athletics. My name is Joel Richardson, and let's bring in our East Idaho expert and insider, Mr. Sean Kane. Sean, it's cold. It's Monday. How you holding up, man?
I'm down here in the command center, normal darkness level that I usually kind of just lurk in, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I can't see Michael Jordan's poster back there.
Nope, you just get in my face.
You look good, man.
Yeah, so yeah, things are good. I tell you what, after Christmas, things just go really fast. I mean, we are 30 days away from spring sports. 30 days. So, that's softball, crazy. Baseball, track, tennis, 30 days away. So busy trying to get all that stuff ready to go and catch some basketball here and there too. I got a lot of good basketball games going on in East Idaho.
Yeah, you mentioned 30 days away from spring sports, Sean. We're just a few weeks away. Well, maybe even a week away. I guess a week and a half from some district tournament starting on girls' side. And then a few weeks after that, we have state tournament. A couple weeks after that, boys state tournament. And of course, while the girls doing their state tournament, we got boys district tournaments going on. So yeah, you're right. After Christmas, after those holiday tournaments, Christmas, boom, we are flying. And then guys like you or coaches like you are getting started for the spring sports. So hey, thoughts and prayers. Hopefully everything is you're able to keep everything organized. Hey, everyone, want to remind you all that we have a sponsor on this show, Ideal. Right? You guys have all heard of Ideal. It's a state-sponsored tax advantage savings plan that helps families pay for the cost of college. With the rising cost of college, developing a savings plan is the first and most important step in helping families like you finance a college education. An Ideal 529 account can be used towards higher education, a trade school, apprenticeship, or even those student loan repayments. For more information, go to idsavings.org. That's idsavings.org and start your Ideal 529 plan today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this Prepcast so you know when we drop. We've been recently dropping Monday nights at 7:30 because that's honestly the only time when Sean and I can get together and bring you this great inside information. But sometimes we might go on a Wednesday, on a Thursday. So keep like and subscribe so you know and your friends know when we drop each episode every week. All right, Sean, let's get the show on the road. Let's do our player of the week, team of the week. We'll get into some girls hoops, some boys hoops. We'll talk about what's coming up, and we might even get into some wrestling, man. So let's do it. Player of the week is going to come from Idaho Falls, Sean, but not Idaho Falls High School. A player from Watersprings. Who is it this week?
Titus Driver, the 6'10", big man down low for Watersprings. They just not too long ago, a few days ago, took on number 1 Rockland. I mean, it's basically been Rockland, Watersprings, and Dietrich in a 3-way dance or tango, if you will. And Watersprings comes away with a big win, and Driver had 20 points, 10 rebounds, Shaquille O'Neal like numbers. And Watersprings comes away with 69-47, kind of a beatdown of what many are going to say is the best team in 1A, but knock, answer the door. Watersprings is Rockland's conference and just as competitive as any of those top teams.
Yeah. And Watersprings, like you said, Titus Driver, a really good game. He also was helped by Corbin Nelson at 18 points. Oh, Sean, they're 13-1. They move into that number 1 spot. Like you said, knock. It's Watersprings up there in Idaho Falls, that 1A school. They're number 1 in max preps as of just a few days ago, as of the 23rd. updated today. They're number 2, Rockland back at number 1. So man, we'll see what happens, but every game is super important for Titus Driver and this Watersprings team if they want to handle that number 1, get through district play when it's time for that, and then get that number 1 seed going into the tournament.
Yeah, they beat Rockland, have a pretty big high, and then they go and play Mackey, and they lose to Mackey in a tight one,
very strange.
49-45. Oh, Mackey's always competitive, strong, but I would put Rockland and Watersprings in a level a little higher. But big
100%.
game for Watersprings coming up February 1st, as they're going to take on the number 6 Garden Valley team that's been hovering in that top 5 range as well. So really it's going to be a really interesting battle when it gets to districts for those boys in that Rocky Mountain, right? I actually had a chance to talk to Coach Neal from Rockland after the game, and he said, bottom line, we played bad and they played extremely well. But he was actually, is one of those games they just nothing could work. And Watersprings also just played really well, but he thought it was a great thing for his team at this point. They off the high have beaten the Blue Devils of Dietrich, and
that was a big game.
And now they lost to their conference. They're who they're heading off in conference really when it comes down to it. And they lost to him, and he said it was just a really good chance for them to reset and start working on things. So and like I told him, you guys are gonna end up playing again. I mean, so it'll be fun.
Definitely. And when they play them again, they're going to again face our player of the week, Titus Driver. Sean, let me give you some numbers on this Titus Driver kid. 14 points per game so far this year, about 7 defensive rebounds, 4 offensive rebounds, total per game, 12.2. You mentioned Shaq numbers. The fact that he's averaging a double-double basically every game is pretty unreal. And then assists per game, Sean, he's also getting 1.6. So playing, not just maybe Shaq numbers, but also getting some of that modern NBA big numbers where they're known to pass that ball, move it, and be a facilitator, not just a scorer and rebounder.
Yeah, he's just big. I mean, I was actually talking to Coach Ryan Frost of Century today about it. I'm like, he's 6'10", and he's like, wow. I mean, there's not even look at 5A. There's not really anyone taller than maybe Deacon Crabtree of Century might be one of the tallest that I've seen. Yeah. Unless there's someone I'm just totally unaware of, and he's like at 6'5", maybe. So 6'10", big guy. Playing well, and also obviously on the defensive side he's just phenomenal there. He might not get as many stats besides the rebounding, but I know a lot of people will say you find it a lot easier to rebound when you have that big guy there, right? So definitely he's not getting all the rebounds, but I think as a team rebounding scenario, having that big guy down low makes just a huge difference.
Yeah, and you wondered about the defensive stats. We actually have some stats. He's 2.5 blocks per game, Sean. He's averaging so far this year, so that's not bad at all. So one thing I thought was really cool when we have these players of the week. Sometimes they're just one-offs, which is fine. But this guy, not really a one-off. Although last year he's improved substantially. Last year he was about 9 points per game based on the stats that we have. So maybe a little incomplete, but about 9 points per game last year. Now he's averaging 14, like I said earlier, Sean. That's a pretty massive swing, going about 3 average a little more than 3 points per game now from last year. 5. My math is terrible. 5 points per game. That's a pretty good swing. You like to see that improvement from this big going from last year to this year.
Yeah, and there was a good talk about Driver last year and him being tall, and that was kind of where it ended. Like, yeah, he's tall now.
Tall junior, right?
He's kind of put in, he's put in the work. He's pretty athletic. He moves well. I think he's kind of just put all the pieces together and playing really well. So very deserving of the player of the week.
Yeah. So congrats to Titus Driver, our 6'10", now senior player of the week, improving from last year, averaging a double-double every game this year, and part of that Watersprings push to get that number 1 seed. Again, they're 13-2. they're I guess jostling for that first place with Rockland and who is it? Mackey. So we'll be watching that closely, Sean, as we're talking this week. Our title of this week's episode is "Who's in the Driver's Seat?" And right now, sometimes it's Watersprings, sometimes Rockland, sometimes Mackey. So we watch that. But congrats again to Titus Driver of Watersprings for being our East Idaho Prepcast Player of the Week. All right, let's go to our team of the week, Sean. I think we've had them before. If not, we had their star player, one of the best players in the entire state of Idaho, Nash Humphreys. But it's not just going to be Nash this week, Sean. Our team of the week is his boys, the Madison boys, Bobcats.
Yeah, I mean, Madison's lost one game, right? One game. They've come through some tough ones, and nothing was tougher than the other night versus Rigby. They played Rigby. It goes into overtime. I got to go back and watch that game, and
yeah, it was a blast.
It had everything. And here's the deal: we're going to give the team of the week to Madison because they've been on a tear. But Rigby also playing extremely well, had chances in that game. But I think when you have Nash Humphreys, it's that he just did at the end of that game. He did not want to lose the game, so he did what he needed to get to the 3-throw line, make some 3 throws. But just that the ability for Madison to dish out to anyone out there to hit threes or they just have a lot of weapons, been playing very well. It was time to put them up there now as one of the top teams, I believe ranked 2 in that arbitrary system we use.
Right.
They lost to Coeur d'Alene, but they beat Lake City, and Lake City beat Coeur d'Alene. So do with that what you want.
Right, exactly.
But Madison would love. I thought last year Madison got ripped off on their ranking at the end of the year into the tournament. It was one no one. It was a head scratcher. Why did they go down? And these other, I remember talking about it, and I just couldn't figure it out. And I said the whole time, they should have been on the opposite side of Hawaii, and that should have been the final. But
yeah,
they'll be back.
They will be, man. And you mentioned that arbitrary rating system. They're actually, last I checked, Sean, earlier today, they were number 3 there in the old preps.
It does update on Mondays. So
yeah. So I may have caught it before updated. They may be number 2 right now. Last I checked, number 3, but coaches pull their number 2 and media pull their number 2. So at least here in Idaho, they're getting that number 2 love. But again, this Madison boys in that Rigby game, Sean, you and I watched it kind of remotely, but we were watching it at the same time. And it was so fun because it wasn't just the Nash Humphreys show, although Nash Humphreys, right, amazing player. And like you said, he nailed those 2 free throws to seal the game. And by the way, while we're on it, very brave of Nash Humphreys to just go to the hoop, right, and force the issue. And it was a foul. That wasn't like, controversial call. Don't call that in the last seconds of play. He went to the hoop, got the foul, made the 2 free throws to win it. So there was plenty of that. But, dude, we had some great playing from the freshman point guard, Wade Bailey. That amazing dish on down low late in the 4th. He drives the cup. He pulls the weak side. He gets the weak side help. Dishes to Bryce Wilson, their big down low, who got that go-ahead bucket, nailed the layup. I can't tell you how many times, Sean, we've seen that great pass and the blown layup, right? Bryce Wilson nails it late in the 4th quarter. And then we go to overtime. Nash Humphreys hits a deep 3 late in overtime to go up 1. And then Carter Lurwell, Sean, huge 3 to go up 3 with 50 seconds left. That ended up being a huge play. If they don't hit that shot, it's still tied. And then Rigby goes up, and then Nash Humphreys has to hit his free throws to just go to double overtime. But because of Carter's 3-pointer with about 50 seconds left, that allowed them to get a stop on D. And then Humphreys goes. Humphreys, well, I guess the other team, Rigby, hit their 3, tied the game, but then Humphreys could go and win the game, which he did. So I loved how there was lots of contribution from the entire team, and that's why Madison boys, that plus their win after Rigby, Sean, their win over number 1 Blackfoot. Number 1, when I say number 1, they're number 1 in the High Country Conference. They beat Blackfoot 82-72. And after that win, we had to give it to Madison boys as our team of the week.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that's what makes Madison dangerous, is what you illustrated, is you have, Carter and Wilson, Bear Wilson's younger brother. You have all these guys that can make a big shot if needed. I don't think they have to rely on Nash Humphreys as much as I think everyone thinks they do.
Right.
They have a lot of guys that can hit shots, and they've done it at big time moments already in the season. So they're going to be ready, and they're not going to be it's not going to be surprising if you hear Wilson for 3 in the corner dish from Nash, right? It's not going to be like, oh, they found a new guy to shoot. They've got all these guys that can shoot, and then of course Nash Humphreys can drop 40 on you. So what do you do? The only thing maybe they're lacking is a little bit of height, and
sure.
And I think that's where they had trouble with. Rigby was able to rebound the ball very well. Something that doesn't get talked a lot, but rebounding the ball and playing defense is usually how you win a championship.
Yep.
And so, if you're going to get in a foot race or, a scoring race, Madison isn't the team to get it in with it. And then, beating Blackfoot, and, talking to Blackfoot, they don't have a senior on a team. They're a young team. They're right now in that one spot in the conference, and that's a team you've got to keep an eye on, and it'll be really interesting to see how it goes. I still think Hillcrest is maybe the team in that conference, but they've lost to Blackfoot. So there you go. A lot going on.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we'll talk about the kind of the game of the week that's coming up for Blackfoot a little bit later, but got to stick with Madison a little bit longer as our team of the week. Sean, that you mentioned it could be Nash Humphreys hitting, Wilson or Bailey or Lurwell. That pass, by the way, the Nash Humphreys, remember that pass when he hit Lurwell was coming around on a curl on the screen, right? And Lurwell wasn't even there yet. And it was like a quarterback when the quarterback knows exactly where that receiver is going to be.
Timed route.
It was totally a timed route, man. It was such an impressive. That might have been my favorite play of the game. Humphreys passes the ball where Carter Lurwell's going to be, and Lurwell hits that 3 deep. It was a deep 3-pointer. Swishes it home. I thought that pass from Humphreys was so impressive.
Yeah, and real well, he came off the bench last year, and I believe you were with me. We did the game. It was Madison versus Thunder Ridge, and there was nothing you could do really to stop Madison that game when they're hitting shots, and he came in and hit shots. Nash played well. They had older brother Bear Wilson, who was just one of the best players last year in East Idaho for sure on the Mill side. But man, a fun team. It's a fun atmosphere up there at Madison. It's a lot going on. They travel well. It'll be a fun district tournament, and going forward, I think they're going to start prepping for the going forward part of the season now. So congrats to Madison.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Sean, before we move on to our girls basketball and some of the top teams that are playing really well right now, we want to change the channel a little bit to a more serious note. And we're going to put this on the screen right here and talk about Shelley boys basketball, who are doing a silent auction coming up this Wednesday, January 29th. It's going to be for a little boy fighting leukemia. His name is Cohen Leckington. He's the son of Chad and Kaylee Leckington, part of that Shelley Russet community. He's 2 years old, Sean, and folks, you can make your screen big and see some of this writing. Won't read all of it. But in August of last year, Cohen was diagnosed with leukemia. And as a result of that, tests, procedures, treatments just takes a lot out of the family and takes a lot of resources to do that. And they're going to be doing these treatments off and on for the next 3 years. So while the Leckingtons are grateful for all the care and the help that they're receiving from Primary Children's, which is an amazing hospital down there in Salt Lake, it takes a lot, right? It takes a lot to travel back and forth and care for their daughter, their young baby. It's a challenge. So the Shelley boys basketball team, Sean, is raising funds through the Mr. Russet program to help offset some of the costs and some of those struggles associated with Cohen's treatment. That's happening this Wednesday, January 29th, during the homeboys basketball game from 5:30 to 8:30. Be there, participate in the silent auction, and let's help out Cohen Leckington.
Yeah, definitely. And Shelley is just one of those great Idaho communities, right? You've been there a lot, Joel. I've been there a lot, and it's a great community. They really get behind everything they do and are really helpful. And it's just a testament to how well that community of Shelley, Idaho is with the high school, kind of, the figure point in the area and in the potato cellar where they play some basketball games every now and then. But yeah, just a great job by that community. And I'm glad they have this program, but I'm sure if, I forgot my coat, someone would give me a coat in Shelley. It's kind of the community they have there.
I love it, man. And if you want to get the word spread, you can go onto Instagram, look for Shelly.hype. And those are the ones who posted this, the Instagram account, Shelly.hype. Go there, find the post. You can share it. You can like it. You can comment on it. And let's get the word out. And let's support Cohen and his family, Chad and Kaylee, his parents, as they work to help Cohen and be able to take care of things there and at home with their family. So we hope that the best for that. We hope the best, especially for this silent auction this Wednesday. Go out and participate in that. And that's what we do here in East Idaho, Sean, and really at all of Idaho. We support, we encourage, we share as much as we can and get the word out. Last week it was Thunder Ridge, right? The Thunder Ridge boys basketball pink night for one of their fellow students. That was really cool that we could share that, and happy to share that here. And fans, if you want us to share a great story, an initiative, a silent auction, let us know. Hit us up at E1 Educador on X, at SKN182 on X as well. And we'd be happy to share it on here and get your and get goodwill flowing throughout East Idaho and throughout the state of Idaho as well. All right, Sean, let's go to girls hoops, man. We got some great teams. Some of the teams you've heard before if you follow our podcast week in, week out. But we want to really highlight the top teams because this is going to matter as we get into district tournament play in the next week and a half or so. Some districts are starting, they finish their season, Sean, this week, their regular season, and they go to district tournament play next week. Let's first start with 6A, Sean. Who are some of the top teams that we're looking at in 6A?
Well, the other night there was a big game, Madison versus Rigby. It's kind of familiar to what we just talked about in girls, or in boys, and now we're going to go to girls, and that game happened at Rigby Friday, so just a couple of days ago. And Madison and Rigby girls, they go to overtime, and Rigby comes away with a win, 43-41. I got to watch that game as well, and Madison had a bunch of opportunities, just couldn't quite put it away. Rigby was kind of playing we're up, we'll kind of just try to hold and make Madison force something, and they just weren't able to knock it down. But they had a good chance. But with all that being said, Rigby moves to 8-0 in the conference, which I find this conference very interesting now. Mm-hmm. I think at the start of the year, everyone was kind of like, we think it's Madison. Rigby lost a lot of people. Thunder Ridge graduated some. Rigby was the top dog for the last couple of years with their great players that are off playing Division I basketball. But now Rigby, in that sole position of number one, really, because the next team behind them is Thunder Ridge at 5-3, right? Thunder Ridge is a girls team that we haven't talked about a lot, but they've come up with some big games. And then Madison, who kind of is the preseason number one, they're at 4-3. And then Highland at 2-5, and Canyon Ridge is 0-8. But really, second place is still up to grabs between Thunder Ridge and Madison. But Rigby really in the driver's seat now. They have that number one seed and have a good shot at making the state tournament, where you kind of thought it was Madison's going to go, and maybe Rigby, maybe Thunder Ridge. It's kind of flipped a little bit. So pretty intriguing. 6A District 6 basketball, not as strong as last year. The Rigby team was very good. There's some good teams, but very competitive. And teams like a Madison or Rigby aren't the teams you want to play in the first round. Like if you're a number one seed, or definitely. You think back to last year, Madison gave the number one seed Boise everything they could handle in that first round game. And we're, relieved to get out of it. So it'll be very interesting to see. But Rigby, that big OT win, puts them in that sole number one spot.
And you said it, they getting that win gave them plenty of breathing room, as they are 8-0 in conference play. The next closest is Thunder Ridge at 5-3, Madison at 4-3. So while Rigby is in the driver's seat, which is our theme for tonight's podcast, Thunder Ridge, Madison, maybe Highland are still vying for that second, third, and fourth seed. So we'll be watching that closely to see who gets the second seed going into district play. But yeah, Rigby sitting really nice. As long as they don't lay an egg, Sean, they should be going to the state tournament as the 6A High Country Conference. They do send 2 seeds, if I'm not mistaken. So Rigby looking really good. And man, thanks to that 4-3 41 overtime win, sitting really pretty in the number 1 slot. 5A, Sean, top teams in 5A. We got Skyline, Blackfoot, Pocatello. We got Pokey versus Rigby on Tuesday. Not a conference game, but important for Max Prep's ranking.
Yeah, and you think back just a couple days ago when you had the Battle of the Thunder, and the Thunder Ridge Titans in the same conference as Rigby almost beat Pocatello in overtime.
Yep.
And now you've got Rigby coming in. I find this a late season non-conference game that I think means a lot, because I think Pocatello needs some hard games to finish off the season going into a potential state tournament.
Yep.
And then Rigby, if they could get a win here, I mean that's got to feel really good. So that's a big match coming up. Yeah, and in 5A, I think you've got kind of in East Idaho, you're kind of looking at a Skyline, a Blackfoot, and Pocatello.
Yeah.
I don't want to discredit anyone in District 6 5A, because quite frankly, even if their record doesn't shout it out, I still can smell upsets brewing.
It's still not a conference.
Not that any of the coaches that came on the show would want me to say, right? Sorry,
right.
Tyler, Odom. I'm sorry, guys, but I mean, you can't feel safe. Like, you lock the door, but you just know there's other ways to get in the house, and that's kind of District 6. The door's locked. You got a deadbolt. We got windows. We got crawl spaces, and that's like your Shelley, Hillcrest. They're looking for a way in, and you're not going to just be handed it. You're going to have to go out and win it. And Skyline in that kind of top, they've kind of solidified their kind of top spot, but still,
right.
I don't, nothing's free.
No, it's not. And we've seen that. And Skyline Shelley last week, I was broadcasting that game, and then Skyline Blackfoot. And the first half was close, Sean. In both games, the first half was close. Skyline was able to get a bit more breathing room against Shelley before the half ended versus Blackfoot, when Blackfoot was leading at half. In this game, though, with Shelley Skyline, oh my goodness, Shay Shippen had a much better start to her first half than she did against Blackfoot, and that really was why there was a bit more breathing room for Skyline. But again, you never know what you're going to get night in, night out in the High Country Conference. If Skyline struggles in a half, then you feel like, okay, we got a chance. They're 9-0 now, Sean. But yeah, if you're Skyline, you're not comfortable at all playing Blackfoot, Hillcrest, even Shelley. Idaho Falls, Bonneville taking a step back this year.
Yeah,
those 3 teams, man, you don't know. So so Skyline, while they're in the driver's seat, I'm very curious, moving on from Skyline, Blackfoot, Hillcrest, and Shelley, Sean. Again, I saw Shelley play Skyline. I think Shelley is weaker than Blackfoot, but then there's Hillcrest, and I don't know what you're going to get from Hillcrest.
And they've only beaten Hillcrest by a combined 13 points in 2 games, right? So none of those games are close. And this is another scenario I was talking to good old Ryan Frost about, and we were talking about Abby Lusk of the Thunder, and we're talking about the top players, and Shay Shippen and
Shippen, Lusk,
and he said he said, I like players like Shay Shippen because even though she started off bad in the one game, she still ended it with 20-something points, right?
Yeah, 20 plus.
Players that find a way to do that, smart players, as he called it, make it very difficult. I think having that, because everyone will go, Skyline doesn't have anything else, right? I don't think that's a too bold of a statement to go outside of Shay Shippen. Where does Skyline find offense or even defense, if that matter? But so you hope that you can slow Shay Shippen down and find your way in there. But such a smart player finds a way to do it night in and night out, right? A bazillion points this year, and and that's the same thing with Abby Lusk from Pocatello. I don't know if there's a more versatile player, because she can play the 1 to the 5 defensively, and that's what I've seen in the games of late, is they put Garza down low and then have Lusk out on the perimeter guarding the guards, and she's like 8-foot wingspan, clogging up the lanes, making it very hard on the guards. You're a 5'6", really good dribbling guard, and you have Abby Lusk on you at like 6'2" or whatever. it's very difficult. So good players like that. And then Blackfoot, I think Blackfoot just has a lot of good players, right, that all contribute. They may not have that big star power, but as we've talked to coaches all year, that they like that. They like when everyone contributes and they don't have to rely on someone. Look at Sugar Salem, right? That, will they lose a game this year? Question mark, right? Some other teams would like to think that they will, but I don't know. So, some good competition.
Yeah. So 5A is very curious how that's going to go. Skyline number 1 at 9-0, but Blackfoot, Hillcrest, Shelley right there. Their season ends this Thursday, I believe, is their last game.
For which team?
Just for all of 5A High Country Conference, and then they prepare for district play after this week. So with Pocatello, Skyline in the driver's seat in 5A, Sean, let's go down to 4A and let's talk about a team that we haven't mentioned much this year. They're not. We've talked Sugar Salem, South Fremont Teton, that whole Mountain Rivers Conference. We've talked Bear Lake earlier in the season. That volleyball team. A lot of them coming and playing basketball, and they've been dominant as ever. But a team that we haven't talked about much, but I highlighted last week as a game I was watching, American Falls Marsh Valley. American Falls gets the win, and they solidify that number 2 slot, which is going to be huge going to the district play. Sean, tell us more about American Falls.
American Falls, when they took on Marsh Valley, that's a rivalry, an underrated rivalry game.
It's awesome.
Marsh Valley and American Falls always have a battle in something, whether it's soccer or basketball, but it's a really, I think, underrated rivalry. But it was senior night, and the American Falls girls basketball team took down the Eagles by 1 point. Eden Jensen sealed the win with a clutch 3-pointer in the final seconds, putting the Beavers ahead. Her and her sister Addie were unstoppable. They combined for 45 of their 50 points, and just the team stepped up and they got the win and get that second place spot, which just could be super crucial going forward. And Bear Lake's still a team that isn't anything to write off when we get down to it. But and then also on that night, it was the 2000 American Falls girls basketball Idaho State champions and the 2020 Idaho State legends of the game were honored at halftime. And I think the legends of the game were at this year's state, if I remember. And they turn off the light, the legends of the game.
Yeah,
and,
that's cool.
So this group of ladies had a record of 23-5 over a 4-year period. For the seniors, the record was 116. And so they had all these members of these two teams, and just unreal. So a really cool thing. And there were some pictures on their Facebook of all the people there. And how cool to have the two different to have the legends out there at this big game too. So not only did you have this at halftime, you also had a game that came down to the wire. So you pretty much had everything you wanted at American Falls Gym the other night.
Yeah, and then it was senior night, and I always talk about this on broadcast when we're there for senior night. Love being there for senior night. A lot of tears, right, between parents and players, coaches. It can be a very emotional night. But then it also adds some intrigue to the game. There's maybe some pressure. This may be the last time they play, depending on where they are in the standings. It might be the last time they play in their home gym.
Yeah.
So that adds a little intrigue, adds a little pressure. But man, this American Falls Beavers girls basketball team delivered on that pressure for their seniors. And it's so cool when you get Eden and her senior sister Addie, right? Addie the senior. It becomes this family affair. Like you said, 45 points total, 45 out of the 50. That's so cool, Sean, when you can play alongside your sibling, and you guys are also really good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can dream up a better Disney movie, right, on the Disney Channel, and hopefully that's some momentum, right? They're going to go play Bear Lake this Wednesday. American Fall is in Bear Lake, and what a huge game! I think just to get their foot in the door of like maybe we can beat them, right?
Totally.
Like find a way to compete in a way and beat this team, and looking at districts ahead and. But American Falls, playing some good basketball right now.
Yeah, love it. You mentioned they play Bear Lake at Bear Lake. a good litmus test to see, where are we now since the last time we played Bear Lake, and then which actually that was back in January 17th, just 10 days ago, Sean. They lost 57-26. Bear Lake is really good. But you know what? You play them again. You got some momentum, like you said. And then you play Snake River to end the season. Snake River playing all freshmen and sophomores. Sean, I actually follow Snake. Just as a little aside, I follow Snake River's Instagram account, and they're constantly highlighting their girls, these freshmen, sophomores who are really playing good ball. They're just, they're young girls playing ball. But watch out, dude. This Snake River team is going to be good in the next few years. But anyway, I had to shout out Snake River because having a hard season for sure.
After they were state champs last year, so
exactly.
And Riley Ellison graduated the Player of the Year.
Yep.
Baldwin, great down low. They had all these great players. And they graduated. So it's hard to replace like some generational talent sometimes. So but they'll be back. They'll be back being more competitive as it goes on. But yeah, definitely a growing year for the Panthers there.
Yeah. So yeah, they're 0-4 in conference, 0-9, haven't won a game yet. But again, watch out as these girls grow up and get some good experience under the belt. So American Falls finishes at Snake River this Friday, and then after that they get ready for state district tournament. Getting a little ahead of myself, and but hopefully they can get that either that one bid against Bear Lake, maybe upset Bear Lake. If not, they do the play-in game. They get 1.5 bids to state. And they'll play in that playing game for 4A. All right, Sean, that's 4A. Obviously, Bear Lake dominating. American Falls right there, and of course Mountain Rivers Conference. We teased them. We talked about them last week, so we won't go into it too much. But Sugar Salem at 2-0 in conference play. South Fremont 2-1. Teton 0-3. And those teams just have a few more games left, and they'll be ready for district play. But again, Sugar Salem, like you said, Sean, haven't lost a game. Very interested to see if South Fremont can do something there and pull them down from the Mountain Rivers Conference mountaintop. But
yeah, that was that
driver's seat.
Yeah, that game was on IdahoSports.com, right? Sugar Salem, South Fremont, and for a while it was a game, and then it seems like Sugar has this other gear where they just kind of take over the game, and then they're ahead, and it's kind of. It's hard to come back against a team like that. So, but they get 1.5. Unfortunately, it might be like a South Fremont playing American Falls, right, to get to state. And I think South Fremont in any other conference is maybe the top team right now, the way it's going. But lots of wins. If you just look at the 4A standings overall as a state, there's a lot of good teams. There's a lot of wins. Yeah. So it's just going to be tough.
Yeah. And you mentioned South Fremont's record. They've played some really good teams, Sean, and they beat them, outside their conference. So, like you said, in any other, if South Fremont were in any other conference, maybe even classification, South Fremont would be a top player for sure. All right, let's go into 3A of here in East Idaho. Sean, this is, I think, the closest conference race we have. In East Idaho, maybe in all of Idaho. 3A Nuke Conference. Why is it always a new conference, Sean? Love the Nuke Conference. Great name, great teams. But
it's blowing up right now.
It's blowing. That's a great metaphor. That's a good dad joke. But you got in 3A, you got Firth, you have Ryrie, you have North Fremont all vying, and then West J all vying for that number one slot. You got Ryrie 4-2, West J 4-2, North Fremont 4-2, and then Firth is 4-3, Salmon 0-7, not vying, but 4 teams that all have 4 wins. The ending of the season is going to be insane for district seeding. Yeah,
and you've got Firth, who's won the last 3 games, so you got Firth. Playing really well. I found that pretty interesting. They beat Ryrie, which is, I guess, semi the number 1 seed.
Yeah, right.
And they did that pretty good fashion, right? Thursday night, 40-27. Firth was able to beat them, and Firth's going to finish out with South Fremont and West Jefferson, and it'll be really interesting. But all these teams have 4 conference wins, except Salmon.
Right.
And Salmon's won 3 games, and Salmon was at a point where they weren't going to have a program to not winning any games to winning some games. So big shout out to Salmon and what they've ever been do. Cammie Williams, the head coach there, just keeping that program going. That's a difficult thing to go through. So shout out for them. But who wins the nuke? Maybe Homer Simpson knows. He works at a power plant. But yeah,
Sector 7G.
and then we'll have to figure out how they're going to seed it. I'm sure our good friend Matt Harris will know that for that conference. We'll have to give him he'll probably tweet out a scenario, and if they win here and they lose here, they make the play. You know what I mean? Like for playoff football, he'll probably know that. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to beat everyone, right? I mean, there's not a safe spot. There's not a true number one. You're going to have to find a way to win 2 games in a row, right? I think when you think of conference, how do we win 2 games in a row? If we could win 2 in a row, we're in good shape.
Right.
And no team's really been able to do that. So
well, we'll have to have some. How about Matt's matriculations, Sean? A little alliteration there to get Matt Harris maybe on the show, or hopefully he'll post something on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. But this new conference is absolutely bananas. It's closer, Sean. Usually the Rocky Mountain Conference here in East Idaho in 1A is the close one, right? And they're close this year, but nothing like the Nuke where you have 4 teams all vying for not like second or third, but for first place. So here in the East Idaho Prepcast, we're watching that Nuke conference really closely. Again, Firth, they have 3 conference losses. They're home versus West Jefferson this Friday. That's going to be a huge game. For lost 4 in a row, but then they've won their last 3, so they have some great momentum going into that game against West J on Friday. Going to be very interesting to see how they end. And again, Nuke Conference also gets 1.5 bids to state. So you get in, and if you get that second place, then you go play the play-in game for tournament. And man, watch out if you're in that play-in game with as part of the Nuke Conference. I think you have a good chance, and you're going to be dangerous going into the state tournament. So good luck to Nuke Conference this week as they finish up their conference play. Going to be a blast.
Yeah, and just looking at the records, right? Firth is down the line in conference, but they have the most wins.
Yep.
The 10-8, Ryrie 9-9, West Jefferson 9-10, North Fremont 8-10, and then Firth 10-8.
Yep.
I don't know but how exciting. It's going to make it fun. Not for those coaches and those fans. I don't know if that'll be fun, but for us, it's going to be great to come back on and see where it pans out. Or even when that bracket comes out, you're going to really have to take a deep dive to figure out what is what, look at the records, who beat who, and then it won't matter because they have to play the game. So it'll be fun.
Exactly. And you were mentioning, the records, how close things are. You also, if you look at their points per game and their, how many points they're allowing per game, it's all really close as well. I won't go through it, but if you go to IdahoSports.com, look up the standings, look up girls basketball 3A conference standings. We do a great points per game and opponents points per game on the website, and you can see how close those teams really are. And it's bananas how close these guys are. We always talk about the High Country Conference, Sean, as anyone can win any given night.
Yeah,
man,
it's the Nuke this year.
It's the Nuke this year, man. Since High Country Conference Skyline is that for sure number 1, but right now it's Nuke Conference who's given us some of those fireworks. All right, Sean, let's go 2A. Butte County Lady Pirates doing what Butte County does. They're on a 6-game winning streak. They're in the driver's seat, no problem against Grace. So we love Butte County. Great school, great coaches, but we're going to skip over Butte County. They're heavily in the driver's seat. Unless, Sean, you have a shout out for the Lady Pirates basketball team.
Nope, just wanted to mention that they've won their last 6 games. They're 13-6. They got their first conference win, and again 2A, since we're just not 2A heavy in East Idaho. Right. We have 2 teams. We don't always get a ton of shout out for them, but they're gonna be good. I'm excited to see what they do, but I wouldn't say they're totally in the driver's seat, because anytime you have to play Grace 2 or 3 times, I mean, I don't know. You'll see what happens. So that'll be good. And then if we go to 1A girls, so I'll help you speed this along. Okay. As you have Rockland girls, they're 8-0 in conference in that 1A, and they're kind of on a tear too. So that's kind of where we're kind of the big picture things we're seeing from girls basketball hoops as we come to an end of the regular season.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that 1A with Rockland 8-0, you got Ledor 7-2, Chalice 6-2, Mackey 5-2. So there is some wiggle room there for 3-4 or for 2 through 4. Showban, Grace Lutheran at 4-4. They probably can't get that 2, 3, or 4 seed. But yeah, Ledor, Chalice, Mackey vying for that 2 seed. Sean, we have a comment from the fans, from the people. We got Pete Uomni. I hope I got that right, Pete. I apologize for maybe butchering that last name, but he's saying Bulldogs. He sent that while we were talking 3A, Sean. So I'm guessing that's the Matt Harris is Fighting Bulldogs of Ryrie.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
there's a lot of Bulldogs, man.
I know you got
Nampa,
Ryrie,
yeah, man.
So yeah, I'm guessing Pete was sent that from Ryrie. Go Bulldogs. So thanks for shouting him out, Pete. And yeah, very curious to see how 3A goes this next week. All right. Before we move on to boys hoops, Sean, let's give another shout out to our sponsor, Ideal. It's a state-sponsored tax-advantaged savings plan that helps families pay for the cost of college. With the rising cost of college, developing a savings plan with Ideal is the first and most important step in helping families finance a college education. An Ideal 529 account can be used towards higher education, a trade school, apprenticeship, or even student loan repayments. For more information, then go to idsavings.org. That's idsavings.org and start your personal Ideal 529 plan and account today. Sean, boys basketball. We're more girls heavy because we're finishing up, and then we got district play next week. We'll definitely be girls hoops heavy next week as we're talking about district play. But Sean, we got to give a little shout out to boys hoops. Some big games. We had Pokey over Rigby. Shelley beat Pokey. And then we have our big game of the week that we'll talk about in a second. Which of those two teams, Pokey Rigby, or games, Pokey Rigby, Shelley Pokey, do you want to discuss?
I mean, I don't know. It's I thought the Pocatello Rigby game was pretty interesting. Rigby involved in a lot of overtime games. The game was decided by 1 point earlier in the season between Pokey and Rigby, like a similar score, but no overtime. So I thought that was very interesting that Pocatello was able to get that win. But then I thought, Shelley, that I've seen Shelley's boys live a couple of times. They're young. I thought that was a pretty good win for them over Pocatello on the 21st of January too.
Yeah.
And just as far as we're like the calm before the storm. We're kind of hitting that second half of conference play where you're hitting the teams for the second time. Right, you get your second shot at some of these teams in conference, and then you're going to see where that all tallies up. So it's like the calm before the storm, and there's going to be some big rivalry games coming up. And it was kind of interesting to see because again, Pocatello good, Century good, District 6 has got a litany of teams that are good, surprise, and it's nice to get some comparisons on those teams. But again, at the end of the day, you're just like, I don't know. I think in years past, we've had some more dominant teams where you could just be like, yeah, these are the teams. But in 5A, a lot of parity. I think most people would hang their hat on Preston right now, but it's not. It's not so much that you would just be like, yep, it's Preston. It's theirs to lose. I think you've got just a good amount of teams that on any given night in 5A boys basketball can win, and that's kind of what you see here.
Well, and early on in the season for boys basketball, Pocatello, speaking of that Southeast Idaho Conference, we thought, okay, Pocatello is definitely taking a step back. It's okay. They won it last year. No problem. This might be Preston's year, not just in the conference, but at state. But then, Pocatello turns around and beats Rigby, who had just barely lost to a very good Madison team. So it's like, okay, maybe there's something's there. And then Pocatello loses to what we thought also was a Shelley team that had taken a step back. So, yeah, it's very interesting to see these teams that are playing these non-conference matchups. And so we get a wider range of evidence of who these teams are. And I think we still don't quite know who Pocatello is. So I think that's a great take, Sean.
Yeah, it just, and they Pocatello beat Century. So, they're 1-1 in district, Century 0-2. I mean, it really doesn't matter. There's just three teams.
Right.
You got to beat a team twice really to win it. I mean, so
in district play, you mean?
Yeah. So it's nice. It's nice to have home court advantage because that's what you're playing for, really. Not really too much else because you're gonna have to play everyone. and they played Preston semi-close too. So, but I don't know. I don't got a read on where that's going to end up, but I think it'll be fun just to see. And and like I've said again, Preston's probably the most hungry boys team in the Northwest to get to a state tournament. I mean, really,
Agreed.
I think you've got a group of kids that they're how badly they want to go there, not being there the last few years with a super good team, is a little. They have a little more motivation maybe than some of the other teams, but sometimes that motivation can block what you need to do. Right? If you're just so worried about it, you can look past it a little bit, and hopefully that doesn't happen for the Indians. But it's just nice that we've got some parity in 5A basketball, and Blackfoot, a team that we talked about just a little bit too. They're a really intriguing team as well.
They are. So let's get into it for our game of the week. This week, Sean, is going to be number one Blackfoot. When I say number one, I mean in their conference. High Country Conference, Blackfoot is number one, which if you ask, a dozen media coaches, I don't think anyone would have guessed Blackfoot would be number one, but they are number one right now in the High Country Conference. They're 5-1. They're playing at number 2 Hillcrest, who is 4-1. So both win-loss teams, but Blackfoot has one more win than Hillcrest does in conference play. Very close there. Huge game on Friday for first place in the High Country Conference. Whoever wins this game gets sole possession of first place. Again, you're playing for seeding, and you're playing for Max Preps ranking, which, speaking of which, Blackfoot, with no seniors, like you said, they're number 11 in the Max Preps, unranked in our Idaho Sports coaches, media, and coaches polls. Hillcrest, with 7 seniors, number 3 in Max Preps, but they are ranked in the coaches and media polls. Should be an awesome game this Friday.
Yeah, and they've they started off kind of slow, they've kind of been back and forth, and I think that's what you see as a young team, not seniors trying to find their fitting. And they do have some losses that surprise me, like losing to Idaho Falls, right is their only conference win. I think Idaho Falls is down a tier on that ranking of teams in District 6. But you lose to Idaho Falls, but then you play a really close game against Madison, which, like, Madison is the real deal. Like, I feel confident saying that.
Yep.
And that game, they have 2 conference games this week. Wednesday they have Skyline, which is kind of down in that bottom part, right. But that game with Hillcrest, and I gotta see Hillcrest, and Hillcrest is a well coached team. You have Titan Larson, you have Tyson Sweetwood, you got Blakesley running the guard. You've got a lot of players, and if they start making baskets, it's a hard team to beat. So I'm excited to see what happens. And this is a conference that could end up in a tie for first place going into districts as well. I mean, you just look at the schedule and you can see that happening, because Bonneville is no slouch, and I also do like Shelley is like my dark horse in that boys conference.
Well, and let's talk about some of these head-to-heads. So you had Blackfoot played Hillcrest, Sean, earlier in January 7th. Blackfoot beat Hillcrest. It was at home for Blackfoot, 52-50, super close game. And they also beat Shelley 48-45. That was a close game, and that was at Shelley. And then, they haven't played Hillcrest since then. But, dude, this week they got Skyline, like you said, then Hillcrest. Then next week they have Shelley at Blackfoot. So very interesting. We're kind of on the Blackfoot train right now, you and I, but can Blackfoot do the same thing against these teams for the second time in a row? I don't know. I don't know if the players and coaches will have what it takes to beat those 2 teams twice. But prove me wrong, Blackfoot, because, man, what a cool season for them so far.
Well, and they just have a gauntlet, right? A gauntlet of the last games here.
Right.
They have Skyline Wednesday, which is, I'm going to probably their easiest game.
That should be a win. Right.
And they're going to go Hillcrest, Shelley, Bonneville, Pocatello, and then Thunder Ridge. And they lost to Thunder Ridge earlier in the season, but I don't think they played Pocatello. I think they're just playing Pocatello once.
Yep, so they haven't played in the season.
So that might have been just an added game as they're building the schedule. But that's a big arbitrary ranking game, right? You've got all these teams are going to be part of these rankings. Because they're all in Thunder Ridge, and the way Thunder Ridge is playing too, they're in that 3rd spot in 6A. So when the end your season against Thunder Ridge, it could be big too, against a higher classification.
Definitely.
So.
Yeah, so that's something we're going to be watching here at the East Idaho Prepcast. How does Blackfoot do during this gauntlet the next 2 weeks? Can they repeat against Hillcrest and Shelley, and then can they get that win against Thunder, and then Bonneville, Pocatello? It's going to be very fascinating how this Blackfoot team with no seniors but some just really tough players. We saw it in football, and the same thing is happening in basketball. And we said this last week, son, so I won't repeat it. But Blackfoot doing what they did in football, surprising people, taking some names, and pushing towards a potential great seed going into a district tournament and about the end of the month.
And,
all right, Sean,
I was just going to say, we have to credit Blackfoot for scheduling, because I'm looking at the schedule and they're playing basically the most difficult teams you could play, right? They played a Preston. They played Madison. They're going to, obviously they're going to get Hillcrest twice. They got Rigby, and then also having Pocatello, which, yeah, it's not the same team as last year, but they're still the defending champions until they're not.
Yep. Right.
So
right.
You've still got players that know what that's like. So and then their, smaller conference, they played Sugar Salem, which is also having a good run. So, I mean, they've really put, Clint Arvey and the staff there have really put together a schedule that's challenging, and they've met the challenge, I would say, far better than anyone has expected at this point.
Yeah, 100%. And in some of those games, they lost to Sugar Salem, they lost to Madison, but the Sugar Salem game, they only lost by 7. Madison, they only lost by 10, and they scored 72 points against Madison, who doesn't let a lot of points in from their opponents. So, yeah, Blackfoot playing really good, great schedule, and I think a lot of these teams who we're using this arbitrary system, we're using max preps, and teams realize if we want to push ourselves and see where we're at, and then also get a good max preps ranking, we have to play the best teams, or we have to play stronger teams. And so these teams are going out. We've seen it in football, we've seen it in basketball, and these teams go out and play hard, better teams than maybe fans would like, because you end up seeing maybe some L's on the schedule that you don't like, but you beat those good teams, and you should have a better max preps ranking, because either you beat the good teams or you lose them, but it's still a quality loss, if you will. So yeah, 100% shout out to Blackfoot for their scheduling, and scheduling a really good, well, frankly, a gauntlet of teams. Sean, let's do some wrestling. We'll talk about where we're going to be, and let's get out of here. Of course, you can hit the Matt Chat Prepcast every Tuesday. I want to say, Sean, it's at 7:30 is the Matt Chat Prepcast. Great Prepcast. They do an awesome job covering all the wrestling throughout the entire state of Idaho. But we would be remiss if we didn't shout out South Fremont freshman Geisen Packer, and then our buddy at American Falls, Nate Googleman III. Sean, what do you got about these guys from the wrestling standpoint?
Well, hey, they were the winners of the Tiger Grizz from East Idaho.
Yeah, congrats.
So, and there's a lot of teams there, but people who won from East Idaho was these two guys. Packer at the 113, and little Nate at the 150, and they're both haven't lost this year. So Packer 37-0, little Nate 33-0. So not only win Tiger Grizz, they keep their perfect records. They were the only winners from East Idaho schools in that Tiger Grizz. Had to give them a big shout out for continuing to do so well. And South Fremont always has great wrestling. And again, another American Falls guy, right? Nate, it's from American Falls, and they're doing some big things in the wintertime of sports.
Love it. Sean, where are you going to be this week?
Where are we going Thursday? Thursday. Yeah. I'm just with you. I have no home games this week.
Oh, okay. I thought you were doing Century stuff, girls, boys basketball.
They don't have any home games.
Okay. So you're off until hanging out with me on Thursday.
Yeah. So
right on.
I do have some other obligations. Tomorrow night we have an elective fair where the incoming ninth graders come and check out the school, and
perfect.
We have to offer, so I couldn't broadcast with you tomorrow night. But yeah, we have no home games. But me and you will be Thursday night at Shelley Madison girls.
Yeah.
Madison needs a win. We need gas prices to go down, and Shelley, I feel like they need a win. It would be a big win for them. I think Shelley's been in a lot of games. And again, they're like a Pocatello, right? They're the defending champs. It's a different team. They're trying to find their footing after being the top dogs. So it'll be a good matchup for sure.
Yeah, Shelley going into this game 7-12, Madison going in at 12-7. But a win here, you're not playing for conference play. This is a cross classification game, but you're playing for max preps, right? You win this game, you boost your max preps just a little bit. Could be the difference, Sean, between playing the 3 or the 4, or the 5 or the 6. So this is going to be a very interesting game. Sean and I will be on the broadcast for IdahoSports.com. Tune in. I believe the game starts at 7:30. On Idaho Sports, it'll get blasted out on all our social media. Sean will put it out. I'll try to put it out, so you'll have the link and you can listen to the sultry sounds of the Joel and Sean show on Idaho Sports for the Shelley and Madison girls basketball game. And then tomorrow night, Sean, I have a doubleheader at Grace Lutheran. You and I were going to do it together, but yeah, you got more important things to do for sure.
Contracted obligation. So
that's right.
At this time, there'll be no comment, but I just want to know contractually I have to be at Century High School tomorrow evening. So if you have a ninth grader and they're thinking about what high school they want to go to, if they like to see what it looks like to have a lot of blue trophies, you can come to the tennis table.
That's right. Go play tennis with Coach Sean. So yeah, I'll be doubleheader: Grace Lutheran girls versus Chalice girls, and then Grace Lutheran boys versus Chalice boys. That's going to be on IdahoSports.com. Tune in. You'll hear myself and Logan Kelso bringing that call and get to highlight those two good teams as Grace Lutheran and Chalice. Grace Lutheran for boys and girls are kind of in the middle of the pack with Shoban. Chalice just above both boys and girls. Chalice teams are above kind of the middle of the pack, trying to fight for that 2-3 slot. So going to be very interesting to see if and it's going to be senior night at Grace Lutheran.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I love senior night. Adds a little wrinkle to the atmosphere and to some of those storylines. Should be intriguing to see if Grace Lutheran can pull out an upset for both boys and girls, and strengthen their seedings going into district play. So that's Tuesday tomorrow night on IdahoSports.com. Tune in, and then Thursday, Sean and I will be on Madison and Shelley. Sean, anything else?
No, just with the Grace Lutheran, Jeremy Hess, the AD, is the basketball coach, and I believe his son Ben Hess, the great player from last year, is helping coach. So you'll have to check that out. I saw him help coach, or maybe Jeremy had to be somewhere, so Ben coached the team. So that will be kind of fun to see that. That's always a good time. I like it when they have the games together. The girls and boys playing at the same night. I think that's cool personally.
Yeah,
I guess coaches don't like it, as I was talking to some today. But I think for a fan's perspective, will it be double senior night? Will it be the girls and boys?
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to bring them all at the same time. I want to say
I did it last time, and I can't remember what happened. I was there for it last time. It's pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, we'll tune in tomorrow night. We'll try to get you. We'll try to go live during the senior presentation, so you can see the seniors getting their medals or little
baskets of candies
exactly,
and blankets. That's kind of the big thing, is blankets.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So Sean, I swam JV as a senior, so I there was no senior night for myself. Hey folks, thanks for being with us. Remember, East Idaho Prepcast, make sure to like and subscribe to the Prepcast so you know when we drop. We've been doing Monday nights at 7:30, but we might go back to the Wednesday, just depending how things are going. And this is also sponsored by Ideal Tax Advantage Savings Plan that helps families pay for the cost of college. An Ideal 529 account can be used towards higher education, a trade school apprenticeship, or even student loan repayments. For more information, go to idsavings.org and start your Ideal 529 account today. For Sean Kane, I'm Joel Richardson saying be excellent to each other. Have a great week. Enjoy all the matchups, and we'll catch you next week, maybe Monday, maybe Wednesday, for another edition of the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.